Okay, it's time. We can start in about 5 minutes. About 3 minutes, everybody. About 3 minutes. About 3 minutes, we'll get started. About 3 minutes. About 2 minutes, we'll get started. 2 minutes. All right, it's time. It's time. Where are we? The weekly Wisdom Day webinar. It's time. We said we'll be here, and we're here, and the goal is to get better, to be consistent, to be reliable. That's the key. Let's pray before we get started. God, thank you for integrity, for accountability, and for trust. And that we continue to push, we continue to get better and to persevere the obstacles that you've blessed us with. For what we have and what we don't have, we say thank you. In your name, amen. All right. So the first thing we'll do is do a recap of next week. What's the first thing? Who am I? Last week we talked about purpose. We talked about why are we doing what we're doing? What's the end goal? And sharing with me, for those who weren't here last week, brother, me, I'm a father, a husband. I'm insecure. I'm unwavering. I have courage and resilience, and I'm inconsistent. And it's just looking at things from both sides and being okay with what you see. And if you want things to change, then make consistent effort and stand on what you're supposed to stand on when it comes to that person in the mirror. Coping skills. Coping skills are when trauma happens. Trauma is inevitable. What you see, what you hear, what you experience, things taught to you, things read to you, um, and things along that line. So the biggest thing we do is when it happens, we have something to help counteract that, to restabilize us. And so one of the hobbies were cooking, cleaning, content like this. This is a hobby for me. This is a coping skill for me. It allows me to see myself in a different light and to hold myself accountable, regardless of the circumstances or how I feel about it. We talked about the criminal justice, vaguely, criminal law, PC, probable cause versus reasonable suspicion, and the significance of it. What's the purpose of it? So, probable cause is a cause that's probable, something that makes sense, something that can be articulated, something that can be explained on paper, and it makes sense on paper from an objective standpoint. Reasonable suspicions is more of experiences. It's more of an understanding of the unwritten rules and body language. And so it's a slight bias on this one, but you use this one to get this one. So why am I saying it? I'm saying it so we prevent and we understand that with certain expectations that come certain limitations at the same time. And so to be intentional, that's the biggest thing. Be intentional, be preventative. In the film review, I talked about Wakanda Forever. A brief synopsis. I'm not going to spoil it. Brief synopsis. As character building. This is not the last film. This is not the first film. This is flushing out characters and building flashback scenes and foreshadowing events and getting dialogue and body language and consistency versus after trauma. And that's the biggest thing I took away. It was beautiful. I love how it made me feel. I think I'm going to go see it again, but we'll see. So that brings us to today. Today, what are we discussing? The Bill of Rights of 1791 essentially is in the Constitution, the first 10 amendments. Right? Remember, this information is not the here-all, be-all. I've done my research. I stand on it. The goal for this is to provide you with a base level, and then from there you do your own and get better. And that way, hold me accountable if I say something wrong that's not accurate. And at the same time, get me better as well. I don't mind being wrong. Hold me accountable. We talk about crime prevention. Briefly about it is the culpability one has. I'll put it this way. Crime exists when there's three things. When there's a lack of a capable guardian, someone who can ensure accountability is met, a willing participant, which is usually the perpetrator, and it comes the person involved that places themselves in that situation. So crime can exist without those three components. And so with it being a holiday season, the biggest thing for me is that we talk about this. And so we stay preventative because there are people who don't have your best interests. They seek to take advantage, and that's what they're aiming to do. We're responding versus reacting. The biggest thing is to take our time, to not give knee-jerk reactions when it comes to verbal or physical things we do, and to be patient. We'll talk about some techniques, one of which is to count to 3 before saying anything. So we'll get more into that later. And then this is the question for next week, okay? What is my purpose? What am I here for? If I look through the eyes of heaven, doing my best to, what is my divine talent, the thing that I'm best at, or affects the most amount of people in a progressive way. Because it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us as a collective. Okay? So here we go, we'll get started. Oh, affirmations. Affirmations. I am incredible. We built that. I am inconsistent. Okay? Balance. That's the biggest thing. Balance. Okay? I'm not here to be here for an hour, frankly. I'm not here to be here for 5 hours. I'll be here for 15, 20. I'll take some time, answer some questions, and we'll build as a community. And my goal is to extract as much information out of myself as possible. And this is the way I found to do it. The website, www.omariaa.com, omariaa.com. The intention is that we grow and get better as a collective. Something we can recreate on a generational level so it can be retaught curriculum. So the Bill of Rights of 1791, let's go through them briefly, and then we'll notate some as well. Okay. Bill of Rights of 1791, December 15th. Amendment number 1, freedom of speech, religion, and the press. Rights of assembly and petition. Okay. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press of the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So a few takeaways on this one is, and I'm briefly going through this. I'm not going through each one. Briefly, we'll go more into that another time. My goal is that we extract as much in as little amount of time, and we do it holistically and consistently. If you want more, we can always set up a meeting, always on the website. Okay. So this one is first one. We'll make room. Speech, religion, and press. So essentially, they're saying they can't enforce it, and they can't necessarily protect it. Okay, it's something that you're able to do, but they will not. An example: you're free to practice what you want to practice. This is my deduction of it. So feel free to hold me accountable if you don't feel like I communicated thoroughly. The biggest thing is on the first one is you can say what you want to say as long as it's not heinous or slander or affecting someone else's position or status. They talked about the press. The press is free to release these things unless they're proven wrong in court. And then from there, it'll be slander. And you can sue for that as well, for damages on a monetary standpoint. And then it comes to religion. So they can't force people to let you practice your religion. And they can't force you to allow you to stop practicing your religion. Now, crimes against people who practice that religion is different. That's a hate crime. They're not able to protect or to stop as long as you don't cross a certain line in the boundary on a respect standpoint. So that gets to number 2. Remember, hold me accountable. This is a brief synopsis, brief. Right to bear arms. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep, bear arms shall not be infringed. So essentially they're saying you can carry. I mean, that's this. And then we'll put a little for context. Firearm. Okay. Number 3, housing of soldiers. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So essentially, this one says, if they're going to put people in there, pay them. It's going to be like contractual, like an Airbnb type situation. Pay housing for militia. I spelled that wrong, let me know. Hold me accountable. All right. We have this is a huge one, especially in the criminal justice, criminal law, and it really ties into the PC, probable cause, RS, reasonable suspicion. This is against search and arrest warrants. The right of the people to be secured in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describe the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So the biggest things I get on this one is if they're gonna come look at your belongings or come look for something, it needs to be specific. For searches, specific. Okay, it needs to be exact. Oh, it needs to be specific. Shout out to the Specificity Podcast too. It's on the website, omariaa.com. All right. And so 4th, what's my space? 1, 2, 3. All right. Or supported by oath. So they have to tell the truth with it. Or have a good intention and do their best of their ability to articulate the facts of what's going on. And then they talk about by oath and affirmation, which is what they swear in. So they swear before giving anything. Essentially, here's one thing they can use to crack that though. And I'm gonna put this in a different color. It's called the plain view doctrine. This is one of the biggest components of the search and seizures as well. Plain view. Which means if I'm around and I can see it, I can use that as, what do we talk about? Probable cause. It's not reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion is just me and you engaging in a conversation. It could be something simple as that. Probable cause is when there's something that you can see with evidence. Plain view, just wrote that doctrine, make sure we get that verbiage right. Plain view doctrine. If I'm in this room, you all can see these markers. Okay, get there. You see a red one, you see a pink one, because you can see it, you can use that and put that on paper. I didn't search, I didn't prod, I didn't have to use my authority or my power or be aggressive, use coercion or scare tactics. It was in plain view. So now I can add that to my probable cause and I'll write that up for the district attorney. That's how it ties into criminal law. The police is are the foundation, and then they get these things: search, seizure, is sworn, plain view doctrine. So just make sure we stay intentional and we make better decisions as well. We hold each other accountable. Fifth Amendment, rights in criminal cases. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. And so there is this, not all, it's a lot in there. Let's go ahead and embrace the reality. So we'll use this space over here, and I think we'll use that red again. Okay, so now we're on the fifth. So a nice way to sum up the fifth is going to be due process. That's the criminal law aspect. You have to be processed. It has to be due. It has to be fair. It has to be respectful. At least that's the intention. And what else does it say? It says on a presentment or indictment. So that's part of due process. You have to be presented with information you're charged with, and you have to be indicted, which means charged with it. So present is to show, indict is to charge. It's part of the due process. So you get showed the issue or showed what you're accused of, and then they're going to charge you with the same information that showed you, the way you're made aware of what's going on. And it says if you double jeopardy, is you don't have to answer for the same thing. But here's the part, oh, I spelled that right. I believe in myself. Hold me accountable. Here's the thing with double jeopardy. They're talking about criminal cases too. And there's civil cases. Okay? Here's an easy way to memorize it. Civil is money. Civil is money. Monetary damages. What is put money? Criminal is more of the violent, well, not necessarily violent. It's infractions. That's what comes to mind when I think of criminal. I think of violent offenses. This is an insecurity within me. I need to make sure I stay intentional with that. It's not necessarily violent. So we'll go ahead and hold each other accountable and erase that. For my insecurity, I apologize. Will I do it again? Probably. I'll just continue to get better and better each time. Until eventually we replace it with something else, like an affirmation or content creation or cooking or writing or playing chess in my mind. There's a lot of different options. Okay, so they can't charge you twice for criminal or for civil, but they can charge you once. So they charge you criminal, you get waived of it, they let you go, cases are dropped, or you beat it, they can charge you civil now, and vice versa. This one is a lot easier to prove. Civil, the burden of proof is always on the prosecution because they're charging it, they're indicting you, okay? And the biggest thing we remember is beyond a reasonable doubt. Write that down. Beyond reasonable doubt. And I'm gonna get better with my writing too. I'm gonna get better. Be patient with me. I'm gonna get better. Beyond a reasonable doubt is the criminal and preponderance. And I'll type these up. Don't worry. I'll type up the notes. They'll be typed up. Preponderance of evidence, which means a nice amount, a fair amount of evidence. It makes sense somewhat, I guess, where beyond a reasonable doubt is hard, concrete evidence. This is what it is, and I can prove it. All right, we move on to rights to a fair trial. 6. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. which district shall have previous ascertained by law and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel in his defense. Okay, so the notes from last week, I'm gonna go ahead and erase it. Don't worry, you have access to the notes. And we're already covering that, we'll erase that too. And we'll erase this. We'll put it right back up there. Okay, so the last one was due process, double jeopardy. Now we talked about rights of the fair trial. This is number 6. Right to fair trial. This is where they get you. Cheap trial. Yeah. Okay, this is where they get people. So notice the verbiage in here. Speedy in public. Speedy in public. What else does it say? Impartial jury. This is the part that I feel we lose out on a lot. We don't have people in the courtroom to put an asterisk next to that one, to really make sure that we have a jury that fits for us, especially, in certain parts of the United States, most likely more the southern areas, where it was the small, tight-knit community. It wasn't a lot of in and out. It was, if you're there, you're there. You know what goes on. It's not a lot of third-party objectivity in there. Okay, what else they talked about? Impartial jury. We talked about jurisdiction. It's a simple one. We talked about to be informed. Now remember, that ties into the 5th as well. Informed is here, indicted. They inform you. So we'll put an asterisk next to that one, and we'll put 5th. The 5th Amendment is a really powerful one as well. You have to be informed. 5th Amendment. Nature and the cause, to be confronted with the witnesses. So the witnesses have to testify. You have to testify in a court of law. Otherwise, he had ties back. Otherwise, it's not in good faith. Right there, it's the 4th. You have to swear to tell the truth to get that information. If they can't testify in a court of law and swear that this information is true without a witness, then it's done. So just make sure we understand the fundamentals. We get better. If I'm wrong, hold me accountable. Witnesses testify in your favor. So if they bring people, you can bring people as well. That way it's fair. Okay. And we talked about the assistance of counsel. So you have to have counsel. You have to have witnesses in your favor. Now remember, this is the most dangerous one. This is the public defender. This is one of the most dangerous people in society when it comes to role-wise. When it comes to role, make sure we stay professional. Not in charging anyone with it. Just understand the purpose. This criminal defender is the key, because this is how you get plea deals. You understand? How we doing on time? Amazing. The other ones are simple. This is the hardest one. Plea deals, we talked about probation. And some of these probations can range from 5 years to 30. Right? And so understand how it all ties in, and make sure you just be intentional with it when we talk about it, and we get better each and every day, each and every time. All right, here is the 7th Amendment, right in civil cases. You see that ties back into the preponderance of evidence. It tied back. Rights in civil cases. In suits of common law where the value and controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. So 7 is a simple one. That's too light. 7, so essentially, if it's more than $20, you have a right to a jury. Let's make sure we understand that correctly. The verbiage, it's all about the verbiage. Yep, right by trial, right of trial. So then it said jury, it said, oh no, trial by jury, right? Trial by jury. That one's wrapped up. And remember the level of what's that called? Beyond a reasonable doubt. A burden of proof. There you go. A preponderance of evidence for civil beyond a reasonable doubt. A burden of proof for each one. Eighth Amendment, bails, fines, and punishments. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Essentially, it has to make sense, and it has to be documented. No cruel and unusual punishments, and then the cost has to be reasonable. What's the verbiage they use? You got to stick to the verbiage. Fines imposed. Okay, reasonable fines. Fines are reasonable. It makes sense. You're not overly charging somebody because they understand that people have obligations and families to do. And just because you're charged doesn't mean you're guilty. That doesn't mean you've been indicted of it. That's not a final thing. You're innocent until proven guilty on paper. But the most harsh jury is public perception. Once they read it in the paper, once they hear it, a loved one, then essentially it must be true because. And so we got to make sure we stay objective and we stay honest with each other and hold each other accountable when we're wrong. And then congratulate each other when we're right too. Both energies. Ninth Amendment. Rights retained by the people. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Essentially, you get your money's worth. That's just a great way to sum it up. You get your money's worth. Not too much, not too little. You get your money's worth. I mean, that's a great way to sum it up. Keep it really, really simple. Really, really simple. And the 10th, powers retained by the states and the people. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So essentially, each state is each own state. I mean, I think that's an excellent way to put it, to keep it simple. Each state is different. It's different on paper, legally. And they have that right to be different. That's their prerogative. That's their choice. That's their right to be different. So we talked about the Bill of Rights vaguely. Let's go through them. All right. Number one, first is freedom of speech, religion, and press. They can't necessarily stop you, and they can't allow you to, as long as you don't cross a certain line. You're on your own, but you're free to do what you're doing as long as you don't violate or commit heinous acts, essentially. 2, carrying firearms. 3, paying houses for militia. They can't force people to stay. A contractual deal is ideal for them. 4, search and seizures. It has to be specific, exact, and specific twice. We talked about the Plainview Doctrine and how they have to swear in to make sure that the integrity of their words is upheld. We talked about, and it led into due process. So essentially, when you get charged with a crime, they have to present it to you first, with showing you what they're charging you for. Then they have to indict you, which is the charge itself. So it's to inform you, we talked about, to show, then to charge you, to hold you accountable. Double jeopardy, we talked about, they can get charged in each one, but not twice in one. So they can go civil or criminal or civil, okay? To make sure we understand that. Criminal is the infraction, civil is the monetary compensation, all right? So that is the 5th one. 6th one is a right to a fair trial, speedy and public, impartial jury. Put an asterisk because that's the one we lose out on a lot. Impartial jury. What does that look like? Well, make sure we get specific with it and we get it on paper. That's the difference. Okay? Is to make sure you're informed. That ties into the 5th due process. Witnesses to testify in your favor as well. If there's a witness, they must testify in court. It's necessary. That falls into the due process. We talked about the public defender, and this is one of the most powerful positions in the criminal justice system. The policeman and the public defender. Essentially, their job is to get, not all, But on paper, what their job is to get plea deals, to get you in and out as fast as possible, not to get you out of the system in its entirety. Because it's a business at the end of the day. So the plea deals we talked about, probation can last from 5 to 30 years. It can be in and out. You could violate parole, and it all starts with right here, getting you charged or taking a plea deal, a public defender. We talked about the 7, which is if you lose more than 20, then you have a right to trial by jury, and that falls into the civil, which is the preponderance of evidence, the burden of proof. Remember, the burden of proof is always on the prosecution. That's why they say closest to the jury, because they have the most responsibility. So they're balancing it, at least in their eyes. 8 is cruel and unusual punishment, and fines are reasonable. All right. 9, we talked about getting your money's worth. Essentially, what you get here by law on paper is what you get here. You get your money's worth. And we talked about 10, each state is different on paper legally. Different laws, different ordinances, different rules and expectations and cultures, and they have that right. So we talked about the Bill of Rights. Now we're moving on to victimology, okay? Victimology is the study of essentially victims as well as perpetrators as well. The biggest thing they look at is how responsible both parties are, as well as the environment of what's going on. Okay. So remember, there has to be 3 things for a crime. For a crime, there must be a lack of a capable guardian. Okay. No capable guardian. There has to be a potential victim. And then there has to be a willing participant, somebody who's willing to commit the act. Participant. I don't mind counting my fingers, as long as I get the money right. Okay, so for crimes that exist, there's 3 components. One is a lack of a capable guardian, so I'll make sure I distinguish that. There isn't someone there or something there to hold them accountable and stop the behavior, or to move on. 2, potential victim. There has to be somebody to be taken advantage of. Okay, for the 3rd, willing participant to cause the crime itself. So there's somebody who is willing to cause the crime, somebody to commit the crime against, and somebody there or something there not to stop them. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is it's holiday season. It's a lot of exchanges of finances, of information, of details, and I need us to be accountable. I need to make sure that we stay safe. It's going to be dark outside. People don't have the best intention. So the reason I bring this to you is my point I'm coming to is to make sure that we do not put ourselves in a position to be a potential victim. Things are going to happen. But physically, what we can do physically, cyber is different. We can't do things to prevent it. But I'm talking about the tangible body. I'm talking about your persons, to making sure that we get home at a decent hour. We're starting to get darker earlier. Making sure if we have to go home alone, we have somebody on the phone with us, have our keys in our hand, to make sure that we travel light in crowded areas, to making sure if possible, do not travel alone past a certain time. And to make sure that we wake up early. It's things we can do, but my biggest thing is to prevent being a potential victim. Because if you erase the potential victim, there's only a willing participant and a lack of a capable guardian. There's nothing to be taken advantage of. So my goal is for us to erase this, and then from there, crime cannot exist. It cannot exist. That's not true. You're preventing it from existing as easy. It's still possible because of the digital age. Although physically, what we can do is prevent as much as possible with our information, social media, pictures, our settings on our phone. Is to make sure we're being intentional and getting better and better. So we talked about the Bill of Rights. We talked about victimology. And now we're on to responding instead of reacting. So the biggest takeaway rather, is to make sure that we think. We pause first. Pause, think, respond. That's the order I want us to go in. This is me being biased, given my experience. It's to pause before doing anything. We'll say 3 seconds. To think, that's up to you how long you want to think about that. And so we'll put that up to the person. Okay, everybody's different. Respond, that's up to you as well. My biggest thing is that we do the number one, so I even circled it. I need us to pause. We're first stated, we're overwhelmed, pause. I'm about to tell this man, I'm gonna pause. Whatever we're doing, pause. 3 seconds. Wait 3 seconds. So let's move that. Instead of pause, we'll put wait. Wait. It's 3 seconds. And then from there, I guarantee our responses will be a lot more calculated, a lot more distinguished, a lot more accountable when what we want to convey, get across to our audience. And then hold each other accountable. I mean, if we talk and communicate, we need to get in the gloves, or not be around each other indefinitely, or give it some time. It's really up to you and the person and how much you deem that relationship to be worth. Another thing we can do is active listening, which means repeating what people say. And we have about 5 more minutes. Let's wrap this up. Okay. So we talked about repetition of words. Oh, I noticed that you said this. Thank you for saying that. Or, oh, so if I understand you correctly, I'm giving it back to you what you're saying. Repetition and acknowledge the words they're saying. Even if you don't agree with them, at least acknowledge. That's what I write. Acknowledge. I got it. Acknowledge what they're saying. So I noticed that you said this. To acknowledge what they're saying, repeat it. So this is how it will go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait 3 seconds. I'm thinking while I'm doing that. And then I'm responding instead of reacting. And then when I respond, I'm gonna repeat what they're saying and acknowledge that I heard it. And then give my idea of what I comprehend from what they're saying. So now there's acknowledgement. And then you ask them to do the same thing after you lead with that. You lead by example, and then by example you lead. Keep it simple. And so that sums it up for today. We talked about the Bill of Rights of 1791. We talked about victimology. We talked about responding versus reacting. And now the question for next week. Question for next week is, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why am I here? What are my gifts? What can I contribute? What do I can. What do I contribute? That would make the action word. Okay? What do I contribute? So the questions, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What do I contribute? And then the last question is, how do I benefit my community? And the people say a lot of things, oh, this and this and that and that and this, and everybody's my community. The reality is, it's not. When you go to a job application or a scholarship, or I believe taxes, what do you mark? What do you mark in your job application? What do you put in your scholarship application, in your taxes? Whatever you put there, that's the community you represent. You can be in denial as much as you want to. The reality is, when it comes time to get money, when it comes time to get monetary compensation and resources, you belong to a community. So let's make sure that we hold each other accountable with that. And my biggest thing is we benefit our communities to give back to those who are given to us, because we got where we are for a lot of different reasons. The higher power, of course, is still a community around us, and people's actions and contributions as well as your own. And then what do I contribute, and then why am I here? What is my purpose? So what I'm gonna do is, it's 5:25. I'm gonna stick around for about 5 minutes, answer any questions. And I thank you guys for joining us on the weekly Wednesday webinar and extracting this information and being patient. So I'm getting better. I'm not sure if you can tell, but the important thing is I can tell. So I'll see everybody next week. In about 5 minutes, we'll call it. For now, we'll just enjoy ourselves. Thank you again for joining us.